Welcome to Timeless Tales Reimagined, where we breathe new life into the forgotten treasures of literature. Tonight, we journey back to the medieval world to uncover a marvel of storytelling, the Gesta Romanorum. Written in the late 13th or early 14th century, Gesta Romanorum, or Deeds of the Romans, is a collection of tales that served as both entertainment and moral instruction. Its precise origins remain a mystery, but it is believed to have been compiled by monks in Europe, possibly in England or Germany, as a resource for sermonizing. These stories, rich in allegory and wisdom, became the foundation for countless literary masterpieces, influencing the works of Shakespeare, Chaucer, and many others. Each tale in this collection weaves together lessons on love, justice, virtue, and the complexities of human nature. The stories are steeped in the charm of medieval life, with knights, kings, and mythical creatures adorning their pages. But what truly makes this book a marvel is its timeless relevance. Its lessons resonate with us even now, proving that the human condition transcends time. Here on Timeless Tales Reimagined, my goal is to revive these gems in an easy-to-understand fireside storytelling format. Picture yourself in a cozy corner, the flickering firelight casting shadows on the walls as we unravel the wisdom of the ages together. This is more than just a reading, it's an immersive experience, a bridge to the past where we walk hand in hand with the storytellers of old. So settle in and let me guide you through the world of Gesta Romanorum, a journey through the tales that shaped our literary heritage and continue to inspire hearts and minds across generations. Tonight, we begin an enchanting journey into the medieval world of Gesta Romanorum, a collection of tales brimming with wisdom, virtue, and timeless lessons. Let me take you back to the late 13th century, a time when stories were more than entertainment. They were the lifeblood of communities, a way to teach and inspire. Gesta Romanorum, or Deeds of the Romans, was written by monks in Europe, likely in England or Germany. These tales were originally designed to teach moral lessons through allegory, blending history, legend, and faith into stories that echoed from pulpits and lingered in the hearts of listeners. Tonight we delve into the first theme of our journey, the origins of virtue. In these tales we find the essence of love and fidelity, not as fleeting emotions, but as principles that guide and shape lives. So settle in by the fire, let the warmth surround you, and allow these stories to unfold. Our first tale speaks of love, not the fleeting passion of romance, but the kind of love that calls for sacrifice, the love that endures trials and transcends selfish desires. Once there was a noble knight who was deeply in love with a lady of unmatched grace. To prove his worthiness, the lady set a seemingly impossible condition. She demanded that he retrieve a rose from the fabled Garden of Virtue, a mystical place guarded by a ferocious lion. The knight, armed with his courage and unyielding love, set out on this perilous quest. He journeyed for days, enduring harsh winds and treacherous paths, until he stood before the great gates of the garden. There the lion roared, its presence as fierce as the challenge itself. But the knight, remembering the purity of his love, knelt before the lion and offered it no weapon but his bare hand and his unwavering resolve. To his astonishment, the lion stepped aside, moved by the knight's courage and humility. The knight entered the garden, plucked the rose, and returned to his lady. But the tale does not end there. The lady, seeing the lengths to which the knight went, realized that the true test was not in the task, but in the unwavering love he demonstrated. She, in turn, pledged her heart to him, for she now understood that love is proven not by words, but by the sacrifices one is willing to make. Our second story delves into fidelity, a quality often tested in the harshest of circumstances. In a distant kingdom, a loyal steward served his master with unwavering dedication, but envious courtiers plotted against him, accusing him of treason. The king, though troubled, declared that the steward's faithfulness would be judged by divine will. The steward was cast into a den of serpents with no hope of survival. Yet, as the court watched, the serpents lay still, their venomous fangs restrained. The steward emerged unharmed, a living testament to the power of fidelity. His accusers, shamed and exposed, were banished, and the steward's loyalty was forever etched in the annals of the kingdom. These tales remind us that virtues like love and fidelity are not mere ideals, but choices we make, even in the face of insurmountable odds. They inspire us to live with courage, to remain steadfast, and to value the bonds we share. As we close this chapter, think of the virtues that guide your life. What would you face for the sake of love? How far would you go to remain faithful? Perhaps these tales, though centuries old, hold answers that are as relevant now as they were then. Next time we will explore the intricate theme of justice and judgment, diving into stories where fairness and wisdom prevail in unexpected ways. Until then, may the warmth of these stories stay with you, lighting your path as you journey through your own timeless tale. Justice, in its truest form, brings balance to the chaos of human affairs. It is not simply about punishment or reward, but about restoring harmony where it has been disrupted. Yet justice cannot stand alone. It must be guided by judgment, the wisdom to see beyond appearances and into the heart of the matter. Tonight we explore stories where justice and judgment work hand in hand, unraveling human conflicts with fairness and insight. A wise king ruled over a prosperous kingdom, renowned for his ability to resolve even the most complex disputes. One day, two merchants arrived at his court, each claiming ownership of a magnificent jeweled sword. The first merchant argued passionately that he had discovered the sword buried in the sands of a faraway desert, hidden for centuries. The second merchant countered with equal fervour, insisting that he had purchased it from a wandering traveller who sought refuge in his home. The king listened carefully, but saw that both men seemed more consumed by greed than truth. Their words were eloquent, but their eyes betrayed their motives. He thought for a moment, then declared, "This sword, too precious to belong to either of you, shall be given to the executioner. It will serve as a symbol of justice denied, for neither claim is free of suspicion." At these words, the first merchant fell to his knees, tears streaming down his face. "Your Majesty," he cried, "I lied. The sword belongs to this man. Please spare him. Punish me instead, but do not let him suffer for my deceit." The second merchant stood silent, his face unreadable. The king turned to him and asked, "What do you have to say?" The merchant hesitated, then muttered, "If he admits it, then the sword must truly be mine." The king smiled faintly. "The sword shall belong to the man who values life above wealth. It is not the sword that matters, but the integrity of the heart." He awarded the sword to the first merchant, recognizing his selflessness, and banished the second for his greed. The court erupted in murmurs of approval, and the tale of the king's wisdom spread far and wide. Justice is not merely about dividing possessions or meting out punishment. It is about understanding the deeper truths of human nature. The king's decision reminds us that fairness often lies in recognizing the value of selflessness over greed. In another tale of justice, a poor widow sought fairness against a powerful nobleman who had unjustly seized her land. The widow had cultivated the land for years, relying on its modest bounty to sustain her family. The nobleman, driven by greed and power, claimed the land for himself, offering no compensation and no reason. The widow appealed to the local magistrate, but the nobleman's wealth ensured that her pleas fell on deaf ears. Undeterred, she journeyed to the royal court, where she hoped the king's reputation for fairness would bring her justice. The king listened to her story and summoned the nobleman. When the nobleman arrived, dressed in fine garments and flanked by an imposing retinue, he dismissed the widow's claims as the ramblings of a desperate woman. The king, unmoved by the nobleman's arrogance, proposed an unconventional solution. "You shall exchange lives for 1 week. Let the widow live as you do, and you shall live as she does. Then we shall decide who truly deserves the land." The nobleman, confident in his superiority, agreed. For a week he toiled in the fields, ate meagre meals, and endured the biting cold of the widow's humble home. By the end of the week he returned to the court, dishevelled and humbled. "Your Majesty," he said, "I cannot endure such a life. Please return me to my lands and wealth." The king replied, "You have seen what it means to live without power. Justice is not the privilege of the strong, it is the right of the weak. The land shall be returned to the widow, and you shall compensate her for the hardship you caused." The nobleman, chastened, obeyed, and the widow's dignity was restored. These tales of justice and judgment remind us that fairness is not simply a matter of rules and laws. True justice considers the humanity behind the conflict, the courage to see the truth and the wisdom to act upon it. Justice is the thread that binds society together, ensuring that power is tempered with responsibility and that truth triumphs over falsehood. As these stories settle in your mind, reflect on the moments in your life where fairness and wisdom have guided your path. These lessons, born from ancient tales, are as relevant today as they were in the days of kings and courts. Next, we will explore the transformative power of mercy and redemption, tales that remind us of the strength found in compassion. Until then, let the wisdom of these stories illuminate your path, a guiding light in the quest for truth and balance. Mercy and redemption are among the most profound expressions of humanity. To forgive and to transform through compassion require a strength greater than any force of anger or vengeance. Tonight, we step into stories where mercy is a balm that soothes the wounds of sin and where redemption proves that no soul is beyond saving. Once, in a bustling medieval town, there lived a merchant who had amassed great wealth through cunning and ruthlessness. His name was whispered with fear among the townsfolk, for his heart was said to be as hard as the gold coins he hoarded. One day, a desperate beggar approached the merchant, pleading for food to save his starving family. The merchant, unmoved, dismissed him with a sneer, saying, "Go earn your keep, as I have earned mine." That very night, as the merchant lay in his opulent chambers, he was visited by a vivid dream. He stood before a towering figure cloaked in light, who spoke with a voice that resonated like a bell. "You measure your life by wealth," the figure said, "but what will it avail you when your soul stands weighed against the suffering you've ignored?" The merchant woke in a cold sweat, the figure's words echoing in his mind. He resolved to change his ways, though it pained him to part with his fortune. The next morning he sought the beggar and gave him enough gold to sustain his family. From that day, the merchant became known for his generosity, and his wealth, though diminished, brought him a greater treasure, the gratitude of those he helped and the peace of a redeemed heart. Mercy, as this tale shows, is not only a gift to others, but a path to liberation for ourselves. To offer kindness where none is deserved is to open the door to our own salvation. In another tale, a knight of great renown returned from a long campaign to find his castle overrun by a band of thieves. The leader of the band was a man the knight once called his friend, a companion who had betrayed him for the promise of wealth. Consumed by fury, the knight challenged the leader to single combat, determined to exact his revenge. The battle was fierce, their swords clashing under the cold moonlight. But as the knight gained the upper hand, his enemy fell to his knees and begged for mercy. "Spare me," he pleaded, "and I will spend my life repaying the wrong I have done." The knight hesitated. Every fibre of his being screamed for vengeance, but in that moment he remembered the bond they had once shared. Lowering his sword, he said, "Your life is spared, but your debt remains. Prove your repentance, not with words, but with deeds." True to his word, the man laboured to restore the castle and earned the knight's trust anew. His repentance was sincere, and in time he became a loyal steward, honoured for his service. The knight, through mercy, gained not only a servant but a brother, redeemed from his path of sin. These tales of mercy and redemption teach us that strength is not in the power to destroy, but in the courage to forgive. Mercy transforms not only the forgiven, but also the forgiver, breaking the cycle of pain and paving the way for new beginnings. Reflect on these stories as the night deepens. In a world often driven by retribution, what power lies in compassion? How can we, like the knight and the merchant, choose mercy over anger, forgiveness over vengeance? Next, we will explore the intricate balance of envy and virtue, stories that reveal the corrosive power of jealousy and the triumph of goodness over malice. Let the warmth of tonight's tales linger with you, a gentle reminder of the beauty found in mercy and the possibility of redemption for all. Envy is a shadow that darkens the heart, blinding us to the beauty of what we already possess. It corrodes the soul, sowing discord and despair. Yet against envy stands virtue, a light that reveals the folly of jealousy and the triumph of goodness. Tonight, we journey through tales where the destructive power of envy is met with the steadfast strength of virtue. In a distant kingdom, there lived a farmer named Elias, known far and wide for his honesty and diligence. His fields yielded bountiful harvests and his animals thrived under his care. But not all admired his success. Among his neighbours was a man named Beric, consumed by envy of Elias's prosperity. No matter how much he worked his own fields, Beric's crops were meagre, and his jealousy festered like a wound. One day, Beric hatched a plan to ruin Elias. Under the cover of darkness, he poisoned the well that watered Elias's fields, hoping to destroy the source of his rival's success. By morning, the fields began to wither, the golden wheat turning brown and brittle. Elias, distraught, prayed for guidance, unwilling to believe such misfortune could strike without cause. Days later, a wandering monk passed through the village. Seeing Elias's plight, he inquired about the sudden ruin. The farmer, trusting in the monk's wisdom, shared his sorrow. The monk inspected the well and quickly uncovered the signs of tampering. Confronted by the truth, Elias was tempted to seek vengeance, but his heart was too noble to stoop to such bitterness. Instead, Elias approached Beric and spoke with a calm yet firm voice. "I know what you have done, but I will not repay evil with evil. Instead, I offer you a chance to work with me. Together we can rebuild these fields and make them prosper again." Beric, shocked by Elias's generosity, confessed his envy and begged forgiveness. Side by side, they toiled to restore the fields, and in time the land flourished anew. Beric's heart, once darkened by jealousy, grew light with gratitude, and he became Elias's most loyal friend. Virtue, as Elias showed, does not merely resist envy but transforms it, turning a source of discord into an opportunity for reconciliation. By choosing kindness over revenge, Elias not only healed his fields but also redeemed a soul. In another tale, a wise queen ruled over a peaceful realm, her court adorned with talented advisors and artists. Among them was a gifted musician named Selene, whose songs could bring tears to the eyes of even the most hardened warriors. But within the court was another musician, Alden, whose talent, though admirable, was eclipsed by Selene's brilliance. Alden's envy grew with each passing day, twisting his admiration into resentment. Seeking to tarnish Selene's reputation, Alden spread rumours that her songs were not her own, that she had stolen melodies from wandering minstrels. The court, once captivated by her music, began to doubt her, and Selene found herself shunned by those who once adored her. The queen, troubled by the sudden change, summoned both musicians and asked them to perform before the court. Selene, though hurt by the accusations, poured her heart into her song, her voice carrying the weight of her sorrow and her hope. Alden, confident in his plan, performed with skill but without the soul that had always set Selene apart. When they finished, the queen rose and spoke. "Music is not merely the sound of notes but the echo of the soul. Selene's song speaks to us because it is born of truth. Alden, your jealousy has not only harmed her but has diminished you. I will not cast you out, but you must find a way to mend what you have broken." Humbled by the queen's wisdom, Alden apologized to Selene and vowed to learn from her instead of envying her. Together, they created music that brought joy to the entire realm. Their rivalry transformed into collaboration. These stories remind us that envy, though powerful, can be conquered by virtue. The light of kindness, forgiveness, and humility dispels the shadows of jealousy, allowing us to see the good in others and ourselves. As these tales settle in your mind, consider the times envy may have touched your heart. What would happen if, instead of letting it fester, you chose to confront it with virtue? How might your relationships and your life transform? Next, we will explore the magical and mythical tales that transport us to realms of wonder while grounding us in moral truths. Until then, let the triumph of virtue over envy inspire you, lighting your way toward a life of harmony and joy. The soul's greatest battles are often waged in silence, away from prying eyes. Within each of us is a struggle between virtue and vice, temptation and redemption. Tonight, we explore tales from Gesta Romanorum that illuminate these inner conflicts, reminding us that the greatest victories are won within. In a quiet village nestled by a dense forest, there lived a young man named Marcus, known for his charm and wit. Yet beneath his pleasant exterior, Marcus wrestled with a secret. He was consumed by greed, always seeking wealth and power no matter the cost. One day he came upon a strange peddler in the forest who offered him a vial of glistening liquid. "This is the essence of desire," the peddler said. "Drink it and your every wish will be granted, but beware, it will exact a price you may not wish to pay." Blinded by ambition, Marcus ignored the warning and drank deeply. At first, the essence seemed a gift. His every desire was fulfilled, gold piled high in his home, and people flocked to his side, praising his newfound fortune. But over time he noticed something sinister. The more he indulged his wishes, the emptier he felt. His friends grew distant, his laughter hollow, and his heart heavy with regret. One night Marcus dreamed of a vast field, barren and cold, with a single tree in its center. From the tree came a voice, gentle but firm. "Your soul has been poisoned by greed. To cleanse it, you must return the essence and seek the virtue you have forsaken." Awakening with a start, Marcus sought the peddler in desperation. The peddler, seeing his repentance, offered him a remedy, a journey to the Valley of Reflection where he would face the truths of his own heart. The journey was treacherous, fraught with trials tested Marcus's resolve, but through his suffering he rediscovered the value of humility and gratitude. When he returned to the village, he was a changed man, his soul no longer weighed down by the poison of sin. The story of Marcus teaches us that temptation often promises much, but leaves us with less. Redemption, though arduous, brings peace and clarity. Another tale tells of Lady Aurelia, a noblewoman admired for her beauty and grace. Yet, in her heart, Aurelia struggled with pride, believing herself above those around her. One day, a beggar woman approached her, asking for a mere crust of bread. Aurelia, scoffing, sent the woman away, declaring, "Why should I share what is mine with one who cannot earn it?" That night, Aurelia's dreams were plagued with visions of a golden scale. On one side sat her riches and titles, gleaming and grand. On the other side, a single crust of bread. To her horror, the scale tipped in favor of the bread, her wealth and pride outweighed by a simple act of kindness denied. Determined to understand the meaning of her dream, Aurelia sought the counsel of a wise hermit. The hermit, hearing her story, said, "Pride blinds you to the value of humility. To restore balance, you must humble yourself before those you deem unworthy." Taking his words to heart, Aurelia disguised herself as a servant and spent months working among the poor, learning their struggles and joys. Through her labor, she discovered the dignity of service and the folly of her arrogance. When she returned to her estate, she was no longer the proud noblewoman, but a leader beloved for her compassion and humility. Aurelia's journey reminds us that pride is a veil that hides the beauty of connection and understanding. Only by casting it aside can we see the value in others and in ourselves. These tales of the inner battle teach us that the greatest victories are not those seen by others, but those that transform the soul. They remind us to confront our vices with courage and to seek redemption through humility and grace. As these stories settle into your thoughts, reflect on the struggles you face within. How might you overcome the temptations that cloud your heart? What virtues lie waiting to guide you to peace? Next, we will venture into the realm of myths and morals, stories rich with wonder and wisdom. Until then, let the lessons of tonight light your path, guiding you in your own battles within. The Emperor and the Three Questions. In a vast and flourishing empire, there lived a wise and just emperor who was beloved by his people. Yet, even with his immense power and wealth, he often pondered the deeper questions of life, struggling to balance his duties with his desire for truth. One day, he summoned his court and announced that he was tormented by three questions, the answers to which eluded him. 1. What is the most important thing a man can do in life? 2. Who is the most important person to heed? 3. When is the right time to act? He decreed that anyone who could provide answers that satisfied his soul would be granted great wealth and favor. Word of the emperor's challenge spread far and wide, and soon his court was filled with scholars, priests, warriors, and common folk, each eager to offer their wisdom. The first to step forward was a celebrated scholar, his robes adorned with symbols of knowledge. "The most important thing a man can do," he proclaimed, "is to seek knowledge, for it is through knowledge that we master the world. The most important person to heed is one's teacher, for they are the keepers of wisdom. And the right time to act is when the stars align, for the heavens guide our fate." The emperor nodded thoughtfully, but remained unconvinced. The next to speak was a high priest, his voice resonant with conviction. "The most important thing," he said, "is to honor the gods through prayer and sacrifice. The most important person to heed is the high priest, for he speaks the will of the divine. And the right time to act is when the omens favor it, for the gods reveal their plans through signs." The emperor thanked him, but felt the answers were incomplete. Many others followed, offering perspectives shaped by their own experiences. Warriors argued for the importance of courage and loyalty, while merchants emphasized the pursuit of prosperity. Yet none of their answers eased the emperor's mind. Days turned to weeks, and the emperor grew weary. Deciding to seek clarity beyond the confines of his court, he disguised himself as a common traveller and set out across his empire. He journeyed through bustling cities and quiet villages, speaking to farmers, artisans, and labourers, but none could satisfy his questions. One day, the emperor came upon a hermit who lived alone in a simple hut deep in the forest. The hermit was known for his wisdom and humility, and the emperor hoped he might hold the answers. Bowing respectfully, the emperor explained his questions. The hermit smiled and gestured for the emperor to join him. Instead of answering directly, he handed the emperor a spade and said, "Help me till this field, and we shall speak." Confused but willing, the emperor took the spade and worked alongside the hermit, breaking the hard soil under the hot sun. Hours passed, and the emperor, unused to such labour, grew tired and impatient. Just as he was about to demand answers, the hermit pointed to a figure approaching in the distance, a wounded man staggering through the trees. The emperor rushed to the man's aid, bandaging his wounds and helping him drink from a nearby stream. The man, once stabilized, revealed that he had been attacked by bandits while traveling. Grateful for the emperor's kindness, he vowed to serve him for the rest of his life, unaware of the emperor's true identity. As the sun set, the emperor turned to the hermit and demanded his answers. The hermit, his expression serene, replied, "You have already discovered them." Perplexed, the emperor asked him to explain. The hermit spoke. "The most important thing a man can do is to do good, as you did for the wounded traveller. The most important person to heed is the one you are with at the moment, for they are the one in need of your care. And the right time to act is now, for the present is all we are guaranteed." The emperor was struck by the simplicity and truth of the hermit's words. In his quest for lofty answers, he had overlooked the profound wisdom found in humble actions and the present moment. Returning to his palace, the emperor ruled with renewed clarity, guided by the lessons he had learned from the hermit. He became known not only for his wisdom, but also for his kindness, a leader who understood that the greatest truths are often the simplest. This tale reminds us that the answers to life's deepest questions are not found in grandeur or intellect, but in the choices we make every day. What is the most important thing you can do? Who needs your attention now? What are you waiting for? The time to act is always now. The Knight and the Dragon. In a distant realm, nestled between towering mountains and sprawling forests, there lived a knight named Sir Cedric. Known throughout the kingdom for his bravery, Cedric had fought in countless battles and earned the trust of both the king and his people. Yet, his most daunting challenge lay ahead. One day, a messenger arrived at the court with dire news. A dragon had descended upon a neighbouring village, spreading terror and destruction. The creature demanded tribute in the form of gold and livestock, threatening to burn the entire region to ash if its demands were not met. The villagers, desperate and afraid, sought the king's help. The king, troubled by the plight of his people, summoned Sir Cedric. "You are the bravest among us," the king said. "Go forth and vanquish this beast, but be warned, dragons are not mere creatures of flesh and fire. They are cunning and possess powers beyond mortal understanding." Sir Cedric bowed solemnly. "I shall do my duty, your majesty, and rid the land of this terror." Armed with his trusted sword and shield, Cedric set out for the village. As he neared the dragon's lair, he encountered villagers fleeing their homes. They spoke of the dragon's immense size, its scales like armor, and its eyes that glowed with an unnatural light. Undeterred, Cedric pressed on, determined to confront the beast. At the entrance to a dark cave, the knight called out to the dragon, "Come forth, creature of fire! Face me, and let this land know peace once more." A low rumble echoed from within the cave, growing louder until the ground trembled. The dragon emerged, its massive form blocking out the sun. Its scales shimmered like molten metal and smoke curled from its nostrils. "Who dares challenge me?" it roared, its voice shaking the air. "I am Sir Cedric, sworn protector of this realm," the knight replied. "Your reign of terror ends here." The dragon laughed, a sound both menacing and sorrowful. "Foolish knight," it said, "you see me as a monster, but you know nothing of the curse that binds me." Startled, Cedric lowered his sword slightly. "What curse do you speak of?" The dragon's eyes softened, glowing less fiercely. "I was once a prince, bound by a spell for my arrogance and cruelty. A sorcerer cursed me to live as this creature until someone showed me mercy and courage, not hatred. Many have come to slay me, but none have listened to my plea." Cedric hesitated, torn between his duty to slay the dragon and his compassion for the creature's plight. He sheathed his sword and said, "If what you say is true, then how might you be freed from this curse?" The dragon, surprised by the knight's willingness to listen, replied, "The sorcerer's curse can only be broken by an act of true sacrifice. Someone must offer themselves willingly to take my place." Cedric stood in silence, the weight of the dragon's words pressing on him. He thought of his family, his king, and the villagers who depended on him. Finally he said, "If my sacrifice can save the people and restore you, I will take your place." The dragon let out a mournful cry. "You would give up your life for my?" Cedric replied, "Because mercy and courage are greater than vengeance. If we cannot end the cycle of pain, who will?" As Cedric stepped forward, a blinding light enveloped the cave. The dragon's form began to shift, its scales falling away to reveal a man. The prince, now restored, knelt before Cedric, tears streaming down his face. "Your sacrifice was not needed, noble knight," he said. "The curse is broken not by your death, but by your willingness to show mercy." The villagers who had gathered nearby watched in awe as the prince and Cedric emerged from the cave. The land was free of the dragon's terror, and the prince vowed to spend his life atoning for the harm he had caused. The story of Sir Cedric and the dragon spread far and wide, becoming a symbol of compassion and courage. It reminds us that sometimes the greatest battles are not won by force, but by understanding and a willingness to see beyond fear and anger. As you reflect on this tale, consider the moments in your life where mercy could triumph over conflict. How might compassion break the curses that bind us all? In the face of darkness, it is often the light of understanding that leads the way. The Ring of Fortune. In a faraway kingdom there lived a humble blacksmith named Galen. Though his hands were rough from years of labour, his heart was kind and his spirit unyielding. Galen was content with his simple life, finding joy in crafting tools for his village and caring for his ailing mother. Yet, unbeknownst to him, fate had a grander design. One evening, as the sun dipped below the hills, a mysterious traveller arrived at Galen's forge. Clad in a cloak that shimmered like starlight, the traveller carried an air of both majesty and mystery. "Kind blacksmith," the traveller said, "my horse has lost a shoe, and I am in great haste. Will you mend it for me?" Galen, always willing to help, agreed without hesitation. As he worked, the traveller watched him closely, noting the care and precision with which he forged the shoe. When the task was done, the traveller smiled and said, "You have served me well, and for your kindness I will give you a gift." From his cloak, the traveller produced a simple gold ring. "This is no ordinary ring," he said. "It is the Ring of Fortune. With it you may summon wealth, power, or whatever your heart desires. But beware, for fortune is a fickle mistress, and the ring's gifts come with a price." Galen hesitated, unsure if he should accept such a gift. Yet the promise of easing his mother's suffering and helping his village tempted him. With gratitude, he took the ring and thanked the traveller, who vanished into the night. At first the ring seemed a blessing. With a whisper of his desires, Galen summoned riches to pay for his mother's medicine and to repair the crumbling homes in the village. The people hailed him as a hero, and his life seemed transformed. But as time passed, the ring's power began to reveal its cost. Galen noticed that no matter how much he summoned, it was never enough. The more he gave to his neighbours, the more they demanded. The more he sought to help, the more they resented him, believing his fortune came at their expense. Even his closest friends grew distant, suspicious of his newfound wealth. One night, tormented by the growing discord, Galen sought the wisdom of an old hermit who lived at the edge of the forest. The hermit, hearing Galen's plight, examined the ring and said, "This ring is a test, not a gift. Its power tempts the heart, but true fortune lies not in wealth or power, but in the peace of a contented spirit." The hermit advised Galen to rid himself of the ring by casting it into the depths of the river that flowed near his forge. Though it pained him to relinquish the source of his wealth, Galen heeded the hermit's counsel. As he threw the ring into the river, he felt a weight lift from his heart. The villagers, seeing his act of humility, began to understand the burden he had carried and the sacrifices he had made for their sake. Slowly, the harmony of the village was restored, and Galen returned to his simple life, finding joy once again in his work and the love of his community. The tale of the Ring of Fortune teaches us that true wealth is not measured by gold or possessions, but by the contentment of the soul and the bonds we share with others. It warns against the allure of easy power and reminds us that the greatest treasures are those we often take for granted. As the story fades into the quiet of the night, consider the fortunes you hold in your own life. What would you give up to protect the peace of your heart? And how might you find contentment in the simple, unspoken joys around you? Let this tale remind you that the greatest riches are those that cannot be bought. The test of faith. In a land ravaged by drought, where crops withered under the relentless sun and rivers ran dry, there lived a farmer named Tobias. Despite the harshness of his surroundings, Tobias was a man of deep faith, believing that the trials he endured were part of a greater plan. His neighbours, weary and embittered, mocked him for his steadfast belief. "Your prayers won't bring rain," they sneered. "Your faith is wasted on a barren sky." But Tobias refused to despair. Each morning he knelt by his fields, clasped his hands and prayed for relief, not just for himself, but for all who suffered. He tended his dying crops with the same care as if they were flourishing, trusting that his efforts would not be in vain. One day, a stranger arrived in the village, clothed in simple robes and carrying a staff. The villagers, suspicious and desperate, asked him if he had brought news of rain. The stranger smiled and said, "I bring not rain, but a challenge. Who among you has the faith to offer what little remains in hope of greater abundance?" The villagers murmured among themselves, unwilling to part with their dwindling resources. Tobias, however, stepped forward. "What must I offer?" he asked. The stranger replied, "Your seed. Plant it in the barren earth, though it seems futile. Water it with what little you have left. Trust that it will grow." The villagers scoffed. "You would waste the last of your seed and water on barren ground? You're a fool." But Tobias, undeterred, gathered his remaining seed and planted it in his parched fields. Each day he carried water from a distant well, pouring the precious drops into the cracked soil. His neighbours laughed and called him mad, but Tobias continued, his faith unwavering. Weeks passed and nothing happened. The villagers' taunts grew louder, their scorn sharper. Yet, just as Tobias's hope began to falter, a miracle occurred. Tiny green shoots broke through the dry earth, reaching for the sun. Within days, his fields were covered in vibrant growth, while the rest of the land remained barren. The villagers, astounded, rushed to Tobias's fields, begging to know his secret. He replied simply, "Faith is not about seeing results, but about trusting in what is unseen. I gave my all, and it was returned to me tenfold." The stranger reappeared, his face alight with approval. "Your faith has saved not only you, but your village. Share your harvest with those who doubted, for true faith seeks not vengeance, but generosity." Tobias shared his bounty, and the village, humbled by his example, came together to rebuild their lives. Rain returned and the land flourished once more, a testament to the power of faith and perseverance. This story reminds us that faith is not merely a belief, but a commitment to act, even when the odds seem insurmountable. It is a light that guides us through the darkest of times, calling us to trust in a greater purpose. As the echoes of this tale fade, reflect on your own tests of faith. Have there been moments when you had to act without certainty of success? How did those moments shape you? Let this story remind you that faith, when paired with effort and perseverance, can yield miracles beyond our understanding. The grand reflection. In the heart of a tranquil village stood an ancient oak, its massive branches sprawling like the arms of a guardian, sheltering all who sought wisdom beneath its canopy. This oak had stood for centuries, a silent witness to the lives and stories of the villagers. Under its shade sat an elder, known far and wide as the keeper of stories. The villagers spoke of him with reverence, saying he had lived many lives through the tales he carried, each a vessel of wisdom. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the sky in hues of amber and crimson, a group of weary travellers arrived at the oak. Their faces bore the lines of long journeys, their eyes a mix of exhaustion and longing. The elder welcomed them with a kind smile and gestured for them to sit. "What brings you here?" he asked gently. One by one, the travellers spoke of their struggles. A merchant lamented the loss of his wealth and the envy it had sown among his peers. A knight confessed his regret over battles fought and lives lost. A farmer, stooped with age, wept for the land he could no longer till. A young woman, her voice trembling, shared her fear of the unknown paths ahead. The elder listened, his expression never wavering, his gaze warm and steady. When they finished, he spoke. "Your stories, though different, are threads of the same tapestry. They echo the questions and trials faced by all who walk this earth. You are not alone in your burdens, nor in your search for meaning. Let me share with you a tale that may offer clarity." The travellers leaned closer as the elder began. Once there was a man who sought to know the meaning of life. He journeyed across vast mountains, through scorching deserts, and over endless seas. He spoke to kings who ruled great empires, sages who meditated in solitude, and warriors who had conquered countless foes. Each offered him pieces of wisdom, to love selflessly, to serve others, to seek balance, and to find courage. But none of these seemed to complete the puzzle in his heart. Exhausted and disheartened, the man wandered into a quiet meadow where a shepherd tended his flock. The shepherd, seeing the wariness in the man's eyes, invited him to sit and rest. The man shared his quest, and the shepherd listened without interrupting. When the man finished, the shepherd pointed to a small stream that wound its way through the meadow. "Drink from the water," the shepherd said, "and you will find what you seek." Confused but too tired to question, the man knelt by the stream. As he cupped his hands to drink, he caught sight of his reflection in the water. In that moment, he realized the truth. The meaning of life was not hidden in distant lands or lofty philosophies. It was in the choices he made, the relationships he nurtured, the struggles he faced, and the peace he cultivated within himself. The elder paused, letting the weight of the story settle over the travellers. "Life's greatest truths are not hidden," he said softly. "They are found in the love we give, the justice we uphold, the mercy we show, and the faith we carry. These stories which you have heard tonight are not just tales of others. They are mirrors reflecting the truths that already lie within you. Their wisdom is yours to carry forward, to guide your steps and shape your path." The travellers sat in silence, their hearts lighter, as if the burdens they had carried had been lifted by the stories shared beneath the ancient oak. And so, dear audience, our journey through Gesta Romanorum draws to a close. These tales, spun centuries ago, carry timeless wisdom that transcends the ages. They are lessons whispered through the corridors of time, that inviting us to reflect on our choices, embrace our virtues, and strengthen our connections with others. As we leave this fireside, I encourage you to carry these stories with you, not as relics of the past, but as companions for your own journey. Reflect on their lessons of love, justice, mercy, and faith. Share them with those you cherish, for stories have the power to build bridges between hearts and illuminate the darkest paths. And now, as we part ways, I invite you to share your thoughts. Which story spoke to you the most? Which lesson will you carry forward? Your reflections are part of this journey, and your insights may inspire others who listen. If you have books or collections of tales you wish to see explored, let me know. Your recommendations could guide our next adventure, uncovering more timeless wisdom and forgotten treasures. Thank you for being part of this journey. May these tales remain with you, lighting your path and enriching your story. Until next time, may your days be filled with love, courage, and peace, and may your heart be open to the wisdom found in the stories we share.